Hi friends, welcome back. This is our second class in the fundamentals of entomology. In the previous class, we have discussed about some of the major events in the history of entomology. In this class, let us discuss the characters of Arthropoda, the phylum Arthropoda, where our insects coming under. So in the previous class itself, we have touched the aspects of insect classification or the classification in common. The modern classification of any organism in the earth is led by Carolus Linnaeus. As we have discussed, he introduced the binomial classification, which means calling the insect by two names, generic name and species name. So, by his way of classification, any organism is classified based on the hierarchy. There are 7 levels of hierarchy in which any organism will be classified. This is the hierarchy. You can remember it by hints like kids prefer cheese over the green peas. So it is K for kingdom and the P for phylum and followed by that C for class and O for order and G for genus and S for species. Carolus Linnaeus, he have defined or he have divided all the organisms in earth in two kingdoms, that is kingdom Plantae and the kingdom Animalia. But later on, the discovery of the microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, virus, they all came, they were not fitting inside the kingdom. So the 5 kingdom classification was introduced by the Whitaker, but still the 7 levels of classification is there. The 5 kingdoms that is defined by Whitaker are Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae and Animalia. If you see the Monera and Protista, they are all unicellular organisms. In case of Monera, it is prokaryote and the Protista, it is eukaryote, which means they are having the well-defined nucleus and the cell organelles. When we see the fungi, Plantae and Animalia, they are all coming under the multicellular eukaryotes, which means they are complex organisms than the Monera and Protista. In the multicellular eukaryotes, our insects are coming under Animalia, the kingdom Animalia. So the kingdom Animalia itself, it is having a lot of divisions. So the divisions are the groups of organisms kept in the groups of different phylums. So the phylum is the subdivision of the kingdom. The kingdom Animalia is having two major divisions: the vertebrate animals, which is having the backbones, and the invertebrate animals, which is not having backbones. Examples for the vertebrate animals are us, humans, and other mammals and the fish. They are all the vertebrate animals. And inside the vertebrate animals also there are different groups like the cold-blooded animal and the warm-blooded animal. These things, it will go away from the scope of our class. If you wish to take that class, I will go in detail with the animal classification, maybe in the upcoming classes. And the next division is our invertebrate, where the organism that is not having the backbones, they are all classified in the invertebrate animals. Different divisions of the invertebrate animals are there. They are all divided into different phylums. It is called the divisions inside the kingdom. It is called as the phylum, or the subgroup of the kingdom. It is called as phylum. We are going to focus more on the invertebrate organisms where our insects comes in. So the phylums of invertebrates are Porifera, Cnidaria, Platyhelminthes, Arthropoda, Annelida, Mollusca and Echinodermata. Then inside the phylum Arthropoda, our insects are coming. Other phylums like the phylum Platyhelminthes, it is having the flatworms or the tapeworms. And the second phylum, the phylum Nematohelminthes, it is having the roundworms. And the phylum Mollusca, it is having our most familiar slugs and snails. And the phylum Annelida, it consists of our earthworm and leeches, and the phylum Arthropoda consists of our insects. And it also, the phylum Arthropoda is also consisting of the lobsters, spiders, crabs and mites. So inside the phylum Arthropoda, not only our insects are there, all the other relative organisms like lobster and the spider, crabs and mites are also there. There are also other phylums of the invertebrate like the phylum Protozoa, Porifera, Cnidaria and Bryozoa. So the divisions inside the kingdom is made based on the specific features or the specific characters. So based on these characters, the phylum is made. So every individual phylum is having its own character. So let's see the most important features of the phylum Arthropoda, where our insect stands. If we divide the Arthropoda term into arthro and poda, the arthro means joint and the poda means legs. Most interesting feature of our phylum Arthropoda is having the exoskeleton. Exoskeleton. Exo means outside and the skeleton means our bones. That means that the organisms of the phylum Arthropoda, they are having to have their bones outside their body. Like we are as a mammals, as a vertebrate animals, we are all having our bones or the skeletons inside our body, but as insects or the invertebrate arthropod, it is going to have its bones outside its body, so it is called as the exoskeleton. It is one of the major features of the phylum Arthropoda, which is made up of the most rigid compound, that is chitin. So as they are having their exoskeleton is used as a armor, body armor. It is the skeleton is spread all over the body of insects, just like wearing the iron body armor. So it is not flexible, it is most rigid thing. So if the insect has to grow, it has to shed its armor. In order to grow itself, it have to remove it, and once again it has to form the armor or the exoskeleton. The formation of the new exoskeleton every time the insect grows, it is called as molting, which is also a common feature in the phylum Arthropoda. The insect is in its immature stage, it has to continuously mold to reach its adult stage. In the immature stage, the arthropods go into the process of maturation by molting. So that means shedding the old armor or the old cuticle, and which will be growing, and again the new armor will be formed. The sequence of process is called as molting. This is the exact reason why the insects or the phylum Arthropoda, they are having the joined legs. So if we see the exoskeleton is the rigid one, like armor, it is spread all over its leg. In leg, if the only one segment is there, the exoskeleton cannot move flexibly, as it will be rigid one, right? So it cannot bend itself. So how the legs of the phylum Arthropoda is made is by different segments. It is when we are studying about the insect legs, we will be seeing the specific segments of the legs, but for now it is having different segments and they are joined together, forming the whole leg. So if the insect need to bend its leg or it has to move, so it is joined, it can do it because it is having the exoskeleton over it, and the next segment there will be a gap in which the flexibility will be there, where the chitin will be absent, and the next segment, and the next segment, and to the next segment, and ultimately the formation of legs. So the insect or the phylum Arthropoda, they are having the joined appendages. And the next feature is that the presence of haemocoel. As a vertebrate, we have the closed circular system, which means that our blood is circulating in the blood vessels, which will be pumped by the heart. So heart is going to pump the blood inside the blood vessels, and it will be shifting the oxygen using the protein in it, that is the hemoglobin. Using hemoglobin, the blood will be shifting the oxygen to the tissues. In insects, they don't have the blood vessels, just like it is having in case of vertebrates. So it is having haemocoel instead. The haemocoel means hemo means blood, and coelom means cavity, which means the blood will not be circulating inside some constrained blood vessels. It will be open, which means all the organelles in the insect body will be floating in the insect blood. The cavity is there inside the insect body or the inside the arthropod body. There will be one cavity, and in the cavity blood will be flowing, in which all the organelles inside the body will be floating, taking the nutrients directly from the blood. And in human beings, the blood transfers oxygen to the cells, but in case of insects, they don't have the hemoglobin in their blood. That's why they are lacking the red color. So when we are crushing the insect, we cannot see the blood that is coming in from the insect body as the red color is because of they don't have the hemoglobin just like we do. So they don't have color in their blood. So what they do, the insect's blood will not carry the oxygen to the tissues. So they are having another mechanism for that is called as the tracheal system of respiration. Tracheas are the individual tubes. The tubes will be there. The tubes from the respiration system, which will be conducting the oxygen, and to the individual organ will be connected. So each and every organ will be connected with the tubes, that is called as trachea from the respiratory system. When we study about the insect respiration, we will talk about these things in detail. And the insect have the dorsal heart and the ventral nerve cord. We can see that here it is the heart which is located in the dorsal area, and dorsal area means the upper area, and the ventral means the belly side or the downside. In the ventral area, the ventral nerve cord is running along the midline of the ventral side. And another important feature of phylum Arthropoda is they are having the segmented body region, which is called as tagma. In case of insect, if we see, the body is divided into three parts, that is head and thorax and the abdomen. So the division of this individual segment is called as tagma, and the process of segmentation is called as the tagmosis. So these are the major characters of the phylum Arthropoda. Inside the phylum Arthropoda, there are subdivisions are there, that is called as the classes. So the subdivision of the kingdom is phylum, and subdivision of the phylum is classes. So in the classes of phylum Arthropoda, if we see, there are 7 important classes of them, starting from the onychophora, crustacea, arachnida, chilopoda, diplopoda, trilobita, and the hexapoda. So the onychophora, it consists of claw-bearing peripatus. The peripatus are the worm-like arthropods. And if you see the crustaceans, as we all know, our well-known prawns, the tastiest prawns, and the crab and the woodlouse, they are all coming under the crustacea class. The crustacea class, the crusta means the shell, the outer shell. If you see the shells of the crabs, based on the shells of the crabs, it is called as crustacea. The crusta means the shell in the upside of the crustaceans. And the next class is the arachnida, which consists of our spiders. Arachnida also consists of the scorpion, ticks, and mites. And the chilopoda. The chilopoda, chilo means lip, poda means legs. The chilopoda consists of the centipedes. We are almost familiar with the centipedes. Everybody is afraid with their scary appearance, but they are most important predators in the natural ecosystem. The first segment of chilopoda is bearing the claws, otherwise called as a lip. The first pair of leg, or we can call it as a first pair of leg, is modified into the poisonous claws. Our next class is diplopoda. Diplo means two and poda means leg. It is having millipedes. So the difference between centipedes and millipedes is having as we already told, that the tagma means the segmentation of body. So the body is divided into different segments. So if you see it in centipedes, it will be having only one pair of legs in each segment of its body, and in case of the millipedes, it will be having 2 legs per each segment. So the millipedes will be having more number of legs as we are comparing it with the centipedes. The next group is our trilobita. The trilobita is an extinct group which we don't need to study more about, and the hexapoda is our insects class. The hexapoda is the class where our insect belongs to. Hexo means 6, poda means legs. So the arthropoda, which is having 6 legs or 3 pair of legs, is called as hexapoda. So the arthropod, which is having the 6 legs, are coming under the class Insecta. Now let's see the relationship of our class Insecta with the other arthropod groups. So if we see the characters of other arthropod groups, the habitat of most of the members of the Arthropoda are terrestrial, except some of them like crustacea, our crabs. They are mostly aquatic in nature and with the few terrestrial organisms. But in case of Insecta, it is having both the aquatic and the terrestrial ones, but the majority of them are terrestrial. And some of them are in their immature stage, they are aquatic in nature, and when they are matured enough, they are matured into adult stage, they are terrestrial in habitat. If we see the body regions, as we already talked about, in insects it is having three distinct body regions, which is called as tagma: the head, thorax and the abdomen. In case of crustaceans, it is having the two segments, that is the cephalothorax, which is the combination of head and the thorax, is called as the cephalothorax. Cephalo means head, so cephalothorax and abdomen, which is, so they are having only two regions in their body. As when we see in case of arachnida, it is also having three segments, that is pro, meso and metosoma. Examples for them is the scorpion. And in case of the spiders, it is having only two segments, which is the pro and opistosoma. Chilopoda and diplopoda, they are having only two regions, which is called as the head, and the distinct head will be there. The next segment is called the multi-segmented trunk, which will be bearing the legs. Next character is having antenna. Antenna is, as we already know, as antenna is a sensing organ. In case of insects and all other arthropods, most of them they have only one pair of antenna, but in case of crustaceae, they have two pair of antenna. In case of Onychophora, the flatworms, they don't have the distinct body regions. Just like we cannot define where the head is, or where the thorax or abdomen is, like we do it with the insects. They don't have, their body shape will be so flat, we cannot distinguish them based on the segmentation will not be visible like for other arthropods. And in case of the when we see the visual organs, the visual organ also in case of Onychophora it is not distinct. In case of insects, it is having two visual organs. Visual organs, especially eyes, it is having two eyes, that is called as the simple eyes and the compound eyes. Simple eyes means it is having only one lens through which the insect sees, and the compound lens means it is having numerous number of lens will be collecting the information and which will be interpreted. We will be seeing about the insect eyes and the visual organs in the coming classes. Arachnida, Chilopoda and Diplopoda, they are all having only simple eyes. In case of Crustacea, the most unique character is there, they are having the stalked eyes. All other arthropod classes, they will be having their eyes stick to their body, but in case of crustaceans, the eyes are stalked. So it will be in the stalk, the eyes will be located. Next one is the locomotion or the movement producing organs or the locomotive organs. In case of insect, as we have seen, there are three defined segments: head, thorax and abdomen. The individual segments, they are having their own role. Like if you take head, they will be eating, the feeding process will be there. In thorax, it is for the movement. The most important part for the locomotion of insect is thorax. Because the thorax, it will be having three segments, which is called as pro, meso and metathoraxes. In the three segments, pro, meso and metathoraxes, the individual legs will be there. It is called as the pro legs and the meso legs and the meta legs. They are totally bearing three pair of legs or six legs, which is why we are calling the insect as or we are keeping the insects in the class Hexapoda. The only arthropod class which can fly is insects. So the wings will be there in case in the mesothorax and metathorax, it will be bearing the wing segments. Don't worry about all the segments and all. We will be going deep into it in the upcoming classes. We will be dividing head, the parts of head and the thorax and the abdomen is functions. We will be going deep into it, so don't worry about anything if it is getting complex. As I have already told, the Chilopoda will be having one pair of leg per each segment. That is, in case of Chilopoda, the name itself suggesting di means two, so it will be having two pair of legs per each segment. But only different is that in case of Chilopoda, the first pair of leg will be modified into the poison claw, but in the Diplopoda, there will be no such poison claws. And in the Diplopoda, it is herbivore, which means it is going to feed on the plants, but the Chilopoda, it is purely the carnivorous, which means they are not going to feed on the plant, they are going to feed on any other living organisms other than plant, or the small creatures other than the plant. In case of spider group, that is arachnida, it is having 4 pairs of legs. Totally they will be having 8 legs in case of arachnida, and in crustacean they will be having minimum of 5 pairs of biramous legs, which means they will be having 2 segments in their legs, so that's why it is called as biramous legs. And in case of onychophora it will be having many pairs of unjoined legs. For onychophora is having lot of unrelated characters are in between the Arthropoda and the other phylum, that is Annelida. Annelida is the earthworm phylum, and our onychophora is flatworm. So it is a link between the Annelida, which is another phylum, and the phylum Arthropoda. In between the two, our class onychophora is coming, so it is having in between the characters of both the phylum it will be having. So we can call it as a link between the Annelida and Arthropoda. Next one, coming to the mouth part, if you see all the arthropods, they are having the mandibulate mouth part, which means the biting type of the skeletonized chitinous mandibles. They are strong apparatus to cutting the food. So all of the arthropods, they are having the mandibulate kind of mouth part except the onychophora. And the respiration, if you see it, all the arthropods, most of the arthropods, they have the like Chilopoda, Diplopoda, and our insecta, they have the tracheal respiratory system, which means they are having that individual tube which will be conducting oxygen to the individual cells. And in case of arachnida, they are having the apparatus that is known as book lungs. In case of scorpion, it is there. In arachnida, both the scorpions and spiders are there, right? So in the scorpion, they are having the book lungs, and in spiders it is having tracheal system. Book lungs are within small openings in the abdomen of arachnids. The book lungs themselves consist of a series of hemolymph-filled plate-like structures which will be assisting in the transfer of oxygen to the cells. So what is hemolymph? The body fluid that is conducting the nutrients from one part to another is called as, in case of invertebrate, especially the arthropods. So the colorless fluid, the blood fluid, is called as hemolymph. The development of the arthropods happens by metamorphosis. Insects develop through metamorphosis. We would have come across in our childhood itself about the metamorphosis of the butterflies. It is having different stages, right? One, the larva will be coming from the egg, and when the larva is done feeding, they will be forming pupa, and from the pupa the butterfly or the adult stage emerges. It is called as metamorphosis. When we see the arthropods in common, they possess the metamorphosis. In case of Chilopoda, Diplopoda, and our insecta, they have the metamorphosis. But in case of arachnida, the scorpions, they don't possess the metamorphosis, but in case of mites, they are having the metamorphosis. When we see there the mites life cycle, it will be consisting of egg, larva, nymph, and adult. The larva will be having 3 pairs of legs, and the nymph will be having 4 pairs of legs. It is one of the special features of the mites. But our classes like onychophora and crustacea, they don't have the distinguished developmental stages, so they are called as the anamorphosis. And when we see the habit of feeding of the arthropods, our insects, they are having all they will come in all the types. Like they are phytophagous, which means they are the insects which is feeding on the plants, it is called as phytophagous. Phyto means plant and phagus means feeding. So they are phytophagous are there, predators are there, parasitoids are there, which means predators and parasitoids, they feed on the other organisms. And in case of Diplopoda, where our millipedes are there, they are mostly herbivorous, and the Chilopoda, as we already discussed, they are carnivorous. And the arachnida also, both the mites, they are feeding on feeding on insects. There are a lot of pests which is coming under the mite category. So they are phytophagous, and the predators also, they are the mites. They are all it is also reported the mites feeding on other mites, and the mites feeding on other insects also. And the crustaceans, they are also having both the thing, like the herbivores also there, the feeding on the herbs like plants, and the carnivorous also there. And the onychophora, they mostly feed on the organic matter. They don't feed on either plants or the dead plants. They are going to feed on the organic matters which is in the ground. And the circulatory system of arthropods, they are having the common circulatory system, which means they are having heart and the ostia. The circulatory system will be consisting both heart and ostia. It is common for all the arthropods. So this is about the characters or most important features of the arthropod phylum, where our insects coming under the class Exopoda are the arthropods, which is possessing 3 pairs of legs or 6 legs. They are insects. Okay, now let us move on to the question part. Question number 1. Prawns and crabs are coming under the class Onychophora, Crustacea, Arachnida or Chilopoda. Question number 2 is, which among the following has 2 antennae? True or false? Chilopoda has 2 legs per segment. Diplopoda has single leg per segment and the poison claw. Both are true, both are false. First statement alone is true, second statement is true. Question number 4 is, stalked eyes is the character of Onychophora, Crustacea, Arachnida or Chilopoda. Linking class between phylum Annelida and Arthropoda is. Question number 6 is, true or false? Insect has dorsal heart and ventral nerve cord. And the final question is, insect blood is called as dash and the color of their blood is dash. Comment your answers below and see you in the next class, guys. Until then, bye bye.
I got time, it's clear to see.